Welcome back. The details. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi affirmed on Friday that Egypt is committed to confronting the climate change challenge and made a global appeal to all parties to the UN's 28th Climate Change Summit to provide a sincere support to the United Arab Emirates to ensure that the Dubai event produces historic results. Details.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Friday greeted the United Arab Emirates over receiving the presidency of the 28th United Nations Climate Change Summit and expressed his complete trust in the capabilities of the United Arab Emirates to actively contribute in achieving the objective set for this edition of the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Convention on the Climate Change, the COP28. Addressing the conference's inaugural session, President al-Sisi said that the UN event is being held along the Sharm el-Sheikh conference last year, coming amid serious international political challenges of the same significance of the climate change repercussions, thus requires hard work by the world's political leaderships to come up with ambitious results and accelerate the implementation of the previous pledges. The President noted that in light of the presidency of the COP27, Egypt believes in the necessity of an urgent collective action to handle the climate change challenge, continue development pursuits while preserving the planet for the upcoming generations. He reiterated the Egyptian keenness to launch many paths which will help meet the aspirations of the developed and developing states on climate, the top of which is the establishment of the Damages and the Loss Fund Fair Transition Program in addition to an action program for decreasing the carbon emissions. The head of state called on the international community to take ambitious steps towards expanding the social participation in the climate change combat efforts while avoiding the unilateral acts which takes into account the narrow interests.
Dubai and to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's participation in the COP28. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also on Friday with French President Emmanuel Macron at his residence in Dubai, and they discussed the latest developments in Gaza. This came on the sidelines of the two leaders' participation in the COP28. The two leaders stressed the necessity of halting fighting and expanding the entry of humanitarian aid to the war-torn enclave, asserting the importance of launching a political dialogue for reaching a fair and comprehensive settlement to the Palestinian cause based on the two-state solution in line with international laws. President al-Sisi reviewed Egypt's efforts for brokering a truce in Gaza, easing the delivery of aid to its residents, receiving the wounded Palestinians for treatment in Egyptian hospitals, and facilitating the exit of foreigners from the besieged enclave. The meeting also touched upon enhancing bilateral ties and cooperation on a number of international issues of mutual concern, particularly the climate change drive. Upon his arrival in Dubai, the head of state held talks with the International Monetary Fund's executive Director Kristalina Georgieva on Egypt's ties with the fund in light of the current cooperation program between the two sides on the implementation of the state's economic reform program. President al-Sisi hailed the fruitful partnership, confirming Egypt's keenness to continue such a partnership given its role in creating a positive atmosphere that opens the broader investment opportunities for foreign investors and international institutions. Earlier, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry handed over the presidency of COP28 to the United Arab Emirates on Thursday. Addressing COP28 inaugural session, Shoukry said Egypt managed to achieve a lot during its presidency of the COP27, moving from promises to achievements and setting rules and commitments for implementation. The minister cited the establishment of the Damages and Loss Fund and adoption of damages mitigating programs as two of COP27 top achievements. The top diplomat said last year's edition of the climate conference was successful, notably as it was held amid the Ukrainian-Russian crisis and while the world was just recovering from COVID-19 pandemic. The foreign minister asserted the need to integrate developing nations in fighting climate change. Delegates from nearly 200 countries convened for the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai, where conference host the UAE hopes to sell the vision of a low-carbon future that includes not just fossil fuels. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Friday offered condolences to Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman over the death of Prince Mamdouh bin Abdulaziz. President al-Sisi prayed to God Almighty to bless the deceased and wished patience and solace to the royal family. Egyptians abroad continued voting on Friday in the 2024 presidential elections. Eligible voters in 121 countries, 137 embassies and consulates are casting their ballots in the election's first round over the next 3 days before voters at home go to the polls from December 10th to 12th. 4 presidential candidates are contesting the elections, namely, number 1 in the voting list is Abdel Fattah al-Sisi with the star emblem. Number 2, Farid Zahran with the sun emblem. Number 3, Abdel Sanad Yamama with the palm tree emblem. And number 4, Hazem Omar with the ladder emblem. The National Election Authority's Central Operation Theater formed to monitor the Egyptians' vote abroad and started its work since Thursday night, coinciding with the beginning of casting ballots in New Zealand. The authority has started holding continuous contacts with Egyptian embassies and consulates abroad to follow up the voting process. Meanwhile, Operation Theater of candidate Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's campaign also began monitoring the vote since it kicked off in New Zealand and Australia, according to their local time. Meanwhile, election campaigning continued inside Egypt with candidate Farid Zahran, chief of the Social Democratic Party, holding a conference in the town of El Minya. As Zahran said, his electoral program focuses on 3 key axes, the economic, social and political ones. As the candidate said, he will aim at conducting a restructure to the national economy, combating corruption, providing work opportunities for youths, upgrading health and education, enhancing human rights, for building a democratic state with improved public living standards. Meanwhile, candidate Hazem Omar held his 3rd electoral conference at Al-Azhar Conference Center, where he discussed the most prominent problems facing citizens in Upper Egypt and putting forward suggested solutions. And candidate Abdel Sanad Yamama will also hold his 4th electoral conference in Cairo on Friday, where he presents his electoral program and the main axes of economic and political reforms, as well as maintaining Egypt's historical right in the Nile River. The Palestinian Red Crescent received 1,132 humanitarian aid trucks through the Rafah border crossing since a 7-day tour started in Gaza. Some 56 trucks entered the north of Gaza only on Thursday, bringing the total number of aid delivered to the northern part of the strip to 310 trucks since the truce began. The northern Sinai governor has earlier said that since the beginning of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, El Arish airport received 2.22 planes from 54 countries carrying medical aid. A total of 1,814 aid trucks entered the Palestinian side of the Rafah land border crossing. To our economic and business segment, Egypt's stock market indices retreated during last week's sessions, losing £34.1 billion. The market's capital for companies listed in the bourse reached £1.676 trillion, losing 2%. The bourse's weekly report showed that the benchmark EGX 30 index lost 3.07% to reach 24,735.39 points, while the medium-capped EGX 70 rose by 4.14% to reach 5,274 points, and the broader EGX 100 gained 2.71% to reach 7,645 points.